So you died. That much is obvious in the opening moments of Astra Knights of Veda, which drops you straight into the middle of a war. The zombie-infested battlefield that eventually kills you does a good job of teasing the mystery about to unfold, setting the stage nicely for your resurrection into this tragedy-stricken kingdom. But while Knights of Veda's detailed world, heart-racing drama, and challenging combat show promise, its overly aggressive grind and unnecessarily complex progression systems dampen the charm.
Master of the book!
I'm looking for Veda's heart.
You play as the Master of the Book, a stereotypical chosen one role given to you by the goddess Veda, who asks for your help finding the missing pieces of her heart after reviving you. She also enlists help from a mini version of herself, a fairy-like companion named Belle, who might give any Genshin Impact fans some potentially traumatic Paimon flashbacks. Most of the current campaign focuses on uncovering the tantalizing pieces of your missing memories, as well as the truth behind the apocalyptic present, which is a more compelling goal than tracking down the goddess's heart. There are currently 6 chapters that take about 30 hours to complete total, assuming you decide to focus on the story by mostly sticking with the same team to minimize the time it takes to level up new characters. The more character-focused chapters that extend beyond Veda's overarching fetch quest are appreciated, and the story does its best to connect the dots, even if it's sometimes in convoluted soap opera-ish ways. It's also clever that it managed to subvert the hero with amnesia trope that kicks things off by having the memories from your past life actually be relevant to current events. It ends up feeling like the gaming equivalent of a true crime show, which is great once you make it past its slow start full of cliches.
Lord Finnar was waiting for someone powerful like you.
This isn't your typical cutesy anime RPG either. Knights of Veda's hauntingly detailed dark fantasy world shows in its grotesque enemies and corpse-filled landscapes. Instead of rescuing a hostage just in time, you're more likely going to watch a monster crush his head like a tomato. The environments are perfectly crafted to reflect the troubled times of this world in a more graphic way than many games in the genre are willing to do. Knights of Veda focuses most of its complexity on its combat, with side-scrolling action reminiscent of arcade beat-em-ups, alongside the leveling systems and party management more typical of an RPG. You control a team of 4 characters that you can instantly swap between depending on your strategy. For example, you could deploy shields using a tank character, and then swap a damage dealer in to attack enemies from behind that layer of armor. And while you can bulldoze through more common baddies with button mashing, enough enemy variety exists that you'll still need to adjust battle strategies on the fly often. Also similar to games like Genshin Impact, Knights of Veda has separate leveling systems for your individual characters, weapons, power-ups, and skills. Each of these requires enhancement materials that you can grind for by replaying chapters in the story. It's a lot to juggle. All these upgrade systems help it feel like you're constantly improving your characters, but they also make it seem like you're constantly running out of resources. Because progression is so slow, you don't often have the resources to properly experiment with a wider variety of characters. Knights of Veda has a rock-paper-scissors type elemental system that encourages you to consider who you are using when facing different enemies. Trying out more characters is enticing, but it means hours of grinding to fully level a single one that likely won't even become a mainstay of your team afterward. As a result, it's easier to keep 3 of your 4 party members the same throughout the campaign and only swap the 4th around when you want to experiment with those elements. As a gacha game, your team could be heavily influenced by which characters you manage to randomly pull. You'll unlock multiple characters as you progress through the story and complete challenges, and you'll get at least 10 pulls for free whenever you hit level 5, level 10, level 15, and so on. So the gacha structure isn't a particular problem here. Of course, life can be a lot easier if you luck into a 5-star character to force your way through the campaign with, but most of the free units are also helpful enough that you don't need to pay real money. Knights of Veda also guarantees you at least 1 5-star character from its standard banner after 50 pulls, so that means a chance for everyone to pull their own powerhouse. About halfway through the current story, you'll start to feel the pain of the grind because of how often you need to farm for character enhancement materials. Knights of Veda has MMO-like leveling, where anything above a 3-level difference between you and your enemies is a noticeable challenge, with attacks that will eat significantly more of your HP. Grinding for materials to overcome those hurdles is typical for free-to-play RPGs and gacha games like this, but ideally, they'll also have systems to make that process less painful, such as an auto-battle option. Knights of Veda doesn't, or at least doesn't implement them in a way that makes the grind any easier. You can fuse together Adventurer's Shoes, a currency for collecting enhancement materials, into Hero's Shoes, which reward more than 5 times the average amount of drops to quicken the process. But doing so requires 80 out of the 120 maximum Adventurer's Shoes you can hold. That meant you could end up trading many of the gems you could have used on gacha pulls to instead replenish your Adventurer's Shoes so you can gather more materials at once and not be forced to redo the same battles over and over. And while there is an auto battle option to initially speed things up, it becomes useless in later chapters. At first, it seems like it could be a helpful tool for effortlessly running through repeated battles to farm materials, but in practice, it's only good for auto-attacking. The AI behind it doesn't know to step back when there are too many enemies or avoid environmental hazards, and will gleefully walk into poison without thinking about the damage over time it will cause. If auto battle at least evaded lightning and similar dangers, it would help automate a larger part of the process, even if you still need to go hands-on for tougher enemies. Knights of Veda also has plenty to talk about in terms of overall jank. Small optimization issues and bugs weren't very distracting individually, but Knights of Veda has enough of them that it feels sloppy. Controller support is only half finished, so you'll need to switch to using a keyboard and mouse for things like navigating between character menus if you play on PC. NPCs in the main town would sometimes show me an unfinished menu before freezing. Overlapping text is the norm throughout, and random Korean phrases will sometimes pop up in service messages. Altogether, the whole package comes across as unpolished. Astra Knights of Veda has an intriguing mystery and engaging combat, but its sluggish progression and unintuitive user experience make this RPG feel like it's fighting against you. The beginner rewards are reasonable enough that it's fairly safe to check out as a free-to-play game, but be warned that the best of its story doesn't come around until at least the halfway point of the campaign. Anyone taking on this adventure will need the patience to learn the layers of systems, grind to high enough levels to survive its hardest enemies, and come back even after your game inevitably crashes. It's a tough ask, but one that's worth at least looking into if you're interested in a darker take on an anime fantasy RPG. For more, check out our reviews of Call of Duty Warzone Mobile or Outpost Infinity Siege, and for everything else, stick with IGN.